Hello everyone, and welcome to Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency. And I would like to say welcome to all of you in the room, and also to welcome you who are watching this event on the web. And today, as you all know, we're going to focus on cooperation with China. And my name is Karin Rödén, and I work as Head of Department for International Cooperation here at Vinnova. And for those of you who are not familiar with Vinnova, I just would like to say that Vinnova is an agency under the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation, and that our task is to promote sustainable growth by funding need-driven research and develop effective innovation systems. And I truly believe that innovation and research is key to meet the challenges of tomorrow and to stimulate new ideas and new solutions. And as you all know, Sweden is a small country, highly dependent on export and internationalization, and therefore it is a great interest for us to cooperate and co-create with other countries. China has done an amazing journey where the government has invested massively in research and innovation, and this has led to an increasing number of students, researchers and publications of research with very high quality. And Vinnova and MOST, the Ministry of Science and Technology, who are here today, we have already cooperated for a long time within different areas such as transport. And we hope that today's event will lead to even stronger networks between our countries, and that our joint call for proposals will stimulate the development of new innovative solutions to increase the number of Swedish-Chinese products on the global market. The cooperation between Vinnova and MOST has been ongoing since 2008. And together we have been stimulating the development of new innovative solutions. And we hope that this will be ongoing for many years. And once again, I just would like to say welcome to Vinnova. And I hope that you will have a very interesting event, and that you all who are here in the room will have the chance to mingle with each other and share experience and ideas after this event. And now I'm going to leave the floor to Ciro Vasquez, working here at Vinnova with China. And you've been working with China for some years now, Ciro. 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Karin. Thank you to all of you for coming today, for your time. I know it's difficult to come these weeks to the event at Vinnova, but we and you we think that's very important. And we will take it in English. We didn't ask you because most of you speak English. I have a lot of people looking to the web that just speak only English. This is the agenda for today, the first half. We have a long agenda. We'll have a coffee break after my presentation, and 3 presentations more, one from my colleague. First of all, I would like to give the opportunity to the Councillor for Science and Technology and the Embassy of the People's Republic of China, my friend Gang Dai, to make a short presentation on science and innovation in China.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. Please, Gandhi. Okay. My guest.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ciro. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to have this opportunity to attend this event to introduce China's national strategy and policy for science and technology and innovation. As you may know, China released the National Innovation-Driven Development Strategy in May of 2016, putting science and technology innovation at the core of the national development. After 2 years, China got some achievement in 2018. The R&D expenditures reached 1.95 trillion RMB, equals $282 billion, account for 2.15% of GDP. and the papers and citations ranked second in the world. And the invention patent applications and authorizations ranked first in the world. China has 181,000 high-tech enterprises and 130,000 high-tech SMEs, and ranked 17th in the Global Innovation Index 2018. In this strategy, China set up several main tasks. First is promote industrial technology innovation system and focus on information, intelligent green manufacturing, modern agriculture, clean and efficient energy, ecological and environmental protection, marine and space, smart city and digital society and health. Another task is to strengthen original innovation and fundamental research, focus on space, ocean, network, nuclear materials, energy, information, and health. China also strongly supports basic research on free exploration and will set up a number of national laboratories and research platforms with international standards. Another task is China will, by 2030, will deploy many major science and technology projects in these areas: quantum communication, information network, intelligent manufacturing and robots, deep sea exploration, new materials and new energy, brain science and healthcare. And another task is to implement intellectual property strategic action plan to enhance the ability to create, apply, and protect IP. Since 2017, China has established 16 intellectual property counts in 16 central cities. Based on latest statistic report by the Beijing Intellectual Property Count, the plaintiff's winning rate rose to 82% in 2018. China also released a policy on international science program and great science project in March of 2018. It aims by 2020, China will launch 1 or 2 large-scale international science projects, cultivate 3 to 5 more projects. By 2035, cultivate 6 to 10 projects facing major challenges for human beings. In 2019, China will support 3 to 5 projects for cultivation in this area: universe and space, earth system and environmental, climate change, health, energy, agriculture, and physical science. The Ministry of Science and Technology also set up a vision for next 5 years. First is to strengthen and phase 3 aspects: the world's science and technology frontier, the main demand of the economy development, and the major needs of the country. Second is pay more attention to original innovation and continuously create and expand new areas in science and technology. Third is to pay more attention to open cooperation and form an interactive win-win situation in the global innovation network. Fourth is to pay more attention to the innovation ecology, form an atmosphere that encourages the whole society to innovate. The ministry also set up the tasks for the next 5 years. First is strengthen long-term strategic planning and form a system layout for medium and long-term science and technology innovation. Second is to improve the national innovation system and optimize the construction of the innovation base. Third is to organize and implement major science and technology projects to achieve breakthroughs in key areas such as quantum science, brain science, health information network, deep space station, smart grid, clean and efficient use of the core, aviation engine, and artificial intelligence. Fourth is to launch international science program and major scientific projects to form a high level of open innovation. Five is to promote the scientific spirit, strengthen the scientific research integrity and the ethics, form a good innovation ecology. China and Sweden has a long history in science and technology cooperation. In 1978, the two governments signed the Industrial and Scientific and Technological Cooperation Agreement. In 2004, the two governments signed an agreement on scientific and technological cooperation. Under this agreement, the two governments and the government agency from both countries have a long history, good cooperation in the past 40 years. And in 2017, the fourth China-Sweden Science and Technology Cooperation Joint Commission meeting was held in Stockholm. The ministers from two governments attended that meeting and decided the future priority area is Arctic research, life science, traffic safety, climate change, and smart city. All these areas are related to the sustainable development. And the Ministry of Science and Technology and Vinnova signed the MOU on the future cooperation and start a new round of joint research project. And Dr. Sarah did a very good job to coordinate this project. And the first round of project was approved at the beginning of this year. Yeah. And there are several important events for the future cooperation. On 24th of June, a China-Sweden scientist roundtable dialogue will be held during the EVA 100 anniversary in Stockholm. The China's Association of Science and Technology and the EVA will hold this meeting. Some top-level scientists from both countries will attend this meeting. And in September, the fifth China-Sweden Science and Technology Cooperation Joint Commission meeting will be held in Beijing. And the Ministry of Science and Technology of China and the Ministry of Education and Research of Sweden will send a high-level delegation to attend this meeting and to discuss the future cooperation. And Vinnova will also organize another event in China by the end of this year. And I hope all the experts and the scientists from both countries can join this event and to promote the cooperation between China and Sweden. I think it will get a win-win result, not only for China and Sweden, but also for the whole world, for a more sustainable development world. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
It's my pleasure.
Now we need to invite the next speaker. I need to borrow your microphone to leave it to Fredrik, I'm afraid. Sorry for that. Kan du säga det? Oh. Thank you. So may I introduce one friend more, Fredrik Udenfeld from Business Sweden. He will make a presentation on perspectives on China-Swedish trade for you. Thank you, Fredrik, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really glad to be here. Can you hear me in the back? Perfect. And Zero, is this the... can you make it...
Jag vet inte vad det är show mode. Jag kan... Där. Trycka på det här.
Full screen. All right. So first, a few words about me and, of course, about Business Sweden. So my name is Fredrik Odenfeldt. I work as Head of Government Affairs for Business Sweden. I've been here for 2 years. Before that, I worked with the Swedish Foreign Ministry for a number of years as a diplomat, based primarily in China. I spent 6 years in China, most lately as Deputy Consul General in Shanghai, where I worked a lot in this sector, actually, the life science sector. And Business Sweden, of course, many of you know, but for those of you who don't, we are jointly owned by the Swedish government through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Swedish industry. We have 47 offices around the world and 500 staff. We are tasked to help Swedish companies grow international sales and to help foreign companies invest and expand in Sweden. And in mainland China, we have 2 of our biggest offices worldwide, working with both trade and investments in both directions. And today I will give you our perspective on trade between Sweden and China, with a special focus on technology and things that we see coming up for Swedish industry in China. So I'll first look at the Swedish company's footprint, current footprint in China and China's importance in the world, and then look a little bit at future challenges and opportunity in the area of science and technology. First of all, of course, this might be obvious, but China is, of course, hugely important in the world economy, already constituting 15% of global GDP, and also interesting to look at GDP per capita, $9,000. So China has come a very long way, but still, of course, has quite a long way to go to become a developed nation. And the goal, of course, in China is to be, by 2049, when China celebrates 100 years, is to become a fully modern socialist economy. And to do that, China needs approximately 30 years of 5% growth. And at that time, of course, if that happens, those 15% will be considerably higher. So China is already very important in the global economy, but the importance will just keep growing. And, of course, for Sweden. Looking at Sweden and China, our exports to China have grown in a very good and healthy manner over the last couple of years. Last year, we reached 67 billion SEK, and the biggest categories are pharma and cars. Pharma exports growing very quickly. In terms of other categories of medtech, it's very hard to locate those in the export statistics because they are classified as different types of equipment. So, but I think the pharma exports tells you something about the growth of the life science sector in China. And China is now our 8th largest export market, and we believe that within 2 or 3 years, China will probably surpass the US in terms of exports. But exports only tell us part of the picture. We also look at total revenue, total sales in China among Swedish companies. And those are already above 300 billion per year. So this, of course, is due to the fact that many companies have local production or production in the region and other types of value add in the market. So this tells us more about the real exposure or the real footprint of Swedish industry in China. And the way we get these figures is to look at Swedish companies' annual reports, where they usually list China specifically and Asia, of course. And here, this is a better, I guess, image of where we really stand. And looking at on a company level, we also list this. So on the axis from left to right, you can see how big part of their global revenue is incurred in China. And on this top to bottom axis, you can see how big their global revenue is. So IKEA being our biggest company worldwide, but Volvo Cars is the company with the biggest footprint or the biggest part of the revenue in China. But here, of course, you can see also, for example, AstraZeneca, of course, very successful in China, but also some other life science related companies that you can find there. And here you can see last year, this is the wrong number, by the way, it should be 2017 and 2017 and 18 on the right hand. Here you can see the actual growth from 17 to 18 in revenue in China on a company level. So Volvo Group being the one that added in absolute terms 9.6 billion in revenue in China. And this is not even counting their joint venture with Dongfeng. So this is apart from that. And then, of course, Volvo Cars. So most of them are developing in a very good way. And we also just recently released our business climate survey in China. I don't have the material here today, but also showing that the companies are very confident in the market. And they see that the business climate is improving. Of course, there are challenges that remain, but and they see they continue their investments in the local market. So this is what we see when we talk to the companies in China. And there are about 500 or 600 Swedish companies located on the market. Going from that then into technological questions. So some challenges or what one of the main challenges that we see is the fast-paced technological development and stronger local competition. This is something that the Swedish companies are dealing with on a daily basis in China. And of course, China has huge ambitions in the field of technology. Of course, this impacts Swedish companies and might also impact them in positive ways. Talent attraction being another one. It's very fierce competition to get the right talent in China. If you look at the top 10 most attractive employers in China, 7 out of 10 are now Chinese, 3 of them are American, and the top one is Huawei. And of course, there you also find companies like State Grid, which is the equivalent of Svenska Kraftnät, which I guess would not rank top 10 in Sweden, but in China it's a huge employer, and it shows that government employees, government-owned companies now are very competitive on the labor market. So it's very tough to attract the best talent in China. And then, of course, looking into specific technology areas, it's clear that China is already a global leader or a regional leader in several key technology areas. The councillor mentioned some of them, and digital payments and mobile-enabled services. Of course, an area where China is setting the standard now worldwide. E-commerce also, of course, big data and AI, a field where China is investing huge amounts and really shaping these future technologies. Electric vehicles, another good example. China is now by far the biggest market for electric vehicles, so it's not surprising that this is also where much of the technological development is happening. But of course, not all of these areas are relevant for Sweden. We are not a major player in all of these, but in others we are. So we have looked at the intersection between China's ambitions and Swedish strengths. I think these are more interesting to look at. Here, of course, advanced materials is one good example, an area where Sweden is very strong, whether it be advanced steel or other types of new materials. It's also an area where China is investing large amounts. So here's a nice or interesting interface that can potentially lead to partnerships or competition, of course. Machine learning, very interesting. This is an area where China is one of the 2 global leaders and might be the global leader in 5 or 10 years. It's not an area where I guess Sweden can claim to be a global leader, but Swedish companies, of course, have to make sure to access the best possible AI technology in the future. Most Swedish companies, including the big ones, cannot afford to do AI development in-house, so they have to access these ecosystems. And some of these key ecosystems will be in China, together with the US, of course, and other places. And primarily, perhaps, in the south of China. And in China, we see that most Swedish companies have historically their biggest footprint in eastern China, around Shanghai and Jiangsu, and also in around Beijing, of course, but not so much in the south, actually, in Shenzhen and Guangdong. Where much of the technological development is happening right now. Another area, and of course these are just examples, there are more than these, but another area is biopharma, where historically it's a relatively weak sector for China, but it's now huge commitments are being made, big investments, and interestingly, China is also now emerging as a leader in terms of clinical trials, and they've quickened up the process for admitting new clinical trials and admitting new treatments and equipment very quickly. So it's emerging as at least a regional point of reference for clinical trials, and potentially at some point challenging US FDA in this area. So so it has always been an interesting market, but now also interesting from this perspective. And this is, of course, a key strength for Sweden. We have some of the best biopharma and life science companies in general. So this is an interesting sector to look closely at. Last one, of course, being power storage. China being one of the leaders in battery, or the leader in battery production. Of course, maybe Korea, maybe Japan are still leading in terms of battery technology, but China picking up very quickly. And all companies in Sweden, or very many companies in Sweden, will have to access the best battery technology, not just the car companies, but many others, as we move into new areas in mobility and other connected devices, etc. So this was it, a very brief presentation by me. Of course, this is an area that we look very closely at. We work closely with Vinnova and to be able to provide the best possible support to companies who are either doing R&D in China or also those who are not, who are affected by R&D questions in China and have to consider and take into account the technological development in China. And we see that most Swedish companies underestimate the pace of technological development in China. And this is something we always encourage them to look more closely at. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fredrik. We are doing so well and so fast, so I will try to do it very slowly with my presentation, so you have just timing for the coffee break. But I will do now my presentation. Yes. By the end. I'm going to present for you the Vinnova and MOS collaboration. We've been working together since 2008, even before, and we have several programs together. Now I would like to introduce for you two of my colleagues working with me at the Vinnova team China. May I ask you to introduce yourself, Johan and Lars? Please come here so the people show you. Can you see who you are?
Hello, is this right? Maybe you can hear me.
No. That's the reason.
So now, my name is Johanna Bokvist. I work as a program manager at the Department of Health here at Vinnova. And I'm working together with Ciro and Lars on this China collaboration that we have. Apart from that, I also work with our strategic innovation program, MedTech for Health. So that is my focus. My background before I came here is that I have experience from Business Sweden in China. I spent a couple of years in Shanghai and also in Hong Kong. I've been working in several life science medtech companies, mainly with business development and strategy. And now I'm here, and now I'm handing over.
Thank you, Johanna.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lars Friberg. I'm program manager here at Vinnova, quite recently joined now in March. I work together with Ciro on the bilateral program here with China, but also on EU relation to third country, which also covers China. My background is I've been working on climate and energy, sustainable development issues for my whole career, more or less, but in different fields, and a large part of it abroad. I lived abroad for 11 years, including working as Science and Innovation Attaché at the Office of Science and Innovation at the Swedish Embassy in Washington. But I also worked in research programs in Germany, in Brussels, and my last job before coming here was working in politics at the Parliament as a policy advisor.
Thank you, Lars. I'm afraid two of us couldn't manage to be here. Erik Wahlgren is the program manager for the transport area, and Katarina Zajzet is working for smart cities. But they support us, they're working together with us. So when you have questions related to these areas, you could contact them. The contact details will be at the end. Short about me, I'm engineering physics from 13 years in Moscow. I've been working 10 years with research in Sweden and Russia. I've been working as sales manager and strategic product manager for Ericsson. I'm working as investment advisor at Business Invest team today. And the last 10 years working for Vinnova International Department. I had the pleasure to work all these years with China. Short about our collaboration. Why we do it? Well, it's not a secret. We want to be even better. We want to strengthen our Swedish actors' capabilities to connect to key actors abroad, international networks. They can together cooperate in research and development that leads to innovation for a sustainable development. We want them to build strategic long-term partnerships with stronger networks, with the new producers of knowledge, and to create innovation, increase foreign direct investments, and support the export of the Swedish companies. The goal is to, in cooperation with key actors in selected markets, like in China this time, is to co-development innovations, products, and services to increase the export to the global market. What are the targets? Well, first of all, the biggest, you see, enterprises. So we are talking not about applied research and curiosity-driven research. We are talking about research and innovation. The last piece of research you need to do before you have a product prototype, a demonstrator. There we are. They need to perform a consortium. The consortium is typically driven by research and innovation needs that the civil society has. They are defined by the industrial actors, active participating and financing the projects. Not only give the money, but we want them to participate in the projects with our knowledge and resources. As we mentioned, we started to work early, based on an MOU from 2004. After 4 years, we could open our first call for proposals, the CFP's call for proposals, IMT Advanced and Beyond, International Mobile Technologies Standard. 2008, it was a young research program in the wireless technologies or future communications, or pre-competitive phase with focus on research. There was researchers from Sweden, researchers from China working together. They discovered a lot of interesting groups working in this area. So they see the main result of this call proposal was just that we found each other. Very interesting groups in China, very interesting groups in Sweden that could work together to create something new. But that was a bit far away from the company's direct business. So we wanted to come closer to the innovation. So we opened a call in 2012 for cooperation building of feasibility studies. That was very unique. The first time we had such a call, because it was only our call. We gave the money to consortia in Sweden that had already partners or knew who they wanted to meet. So in 1 year, we had the time to build a group, a consortium, and a project proposal that could come later on to Vinnova and apply for a project of 2-3 years. In the area that we decided, 2013, we opened a call with MOST. It was 2-3 year projects, about 40 million we had in Sweden, 20 million RMBs in China. In Sweden, within cooperation with Swedish Energy Agency, it was environmental technology, sustainable development, including renewable energy. But after 3-4 years, and we decided to start a new series. But first, I wanted to say that we support the Center for Traffic Safety, China-Swedish. We're very important partners. It's Volvo that's going to present this a little bit later. Autoliv, Chalmers, Rio Institute, Tianjin University, and others. That was based on the MOU with the Minister of Transport. 2017, as we signed a new MOU with MOST and Vinnova. 2018, we opened the first call for proposals for 2-3 year projects. The budget 20 million Swedish crowns, 20 million RMBs in China. It was in life science, traffic safety. They opened in March 2018, closes May 2018, and 4 projects started May 2019. And now we have a call for proposals this year that's closing by Friday at 2 o'clock. and the projects are expected to start on May 2020. When we signed the agreement in 2017, the joint committee meeting, we agreed with MOST to create platforms, meeting places, networks to support our actors and Chinese actors to meet each other so they could apply to our common calls. One of these activities we had last year in November, and now they're organizing this year for common call next year. Very short about what we are planning to have. 20 million Swedish crowns by Vinnova, 20 million RMB from MOST in China. We estimate to fund 4 or 6 projects, bilateral projects. The proposed sectors are applied ICT, life sciences, transport, and sustainable urban development. As I mentioned, the length of the projects should vary between 2 and 3 years. Who can apply? Companies and institutes or universities. This industry and academia. In Sweden, industry and academia in China. That's the minimum. You can have more partners, more companies, more universities, institutes, whatever, but minimum is 1 university, 1 industry in each country. The preliminary dates for the call. We are planning to open the 13th of March 2020. Probably will close the 12th of May 2020. And the project start will be in April, May 2021. So it's long-term planning. And to support this, we are planning to have a second China-Swedish matchmaking event in November, between the 11th and 15th of November, as are the plans today. In Shanghai, between 11 and 13, organizing cooperation with MOST and probably AN in Shanghai as well, European Enterprise Networks. In Shenzhen, we're going to do the 14th and 15th of November, organizing cooperation with MOST. That is the proposed agenda we have today for this week. We start 11th with a welcome introduction to the week activities and local information in Shanghai. Tuesday, we probably will have the event with MOST in Shanghai. The 13th, maybe an event with European Enterprise Network in Shanghai. The 13th, we have the meeting in cooperation with MOST in Shenzhen. And the 15th, we give the participants time to have their own meetings and activities. They want to meet their customers, they want to be investors, selling channels, but they need to have time for themselves. You can visit by your own, but you need to another visa for these events are the Expo China in Shanghai, 5th, 10th of Shanghai, in Shanghai, and the 13th and 17th in Shenzhen, the high-tech fair. They are recommended, but they are not part of the visiting program that we have today. Because the visa you're going to get for this week, 11 to 15 of November, you apply through us. And the SMEs are going to have the possibility to apply for travel grants from Vinnova. About this will be my colleague Birgit Bowman tell you more about at the end of the meeting. And this is the contact information, all of us working with these matchmaking activities and the common call. My colleague Lars Friberg, Johanna Bokvist, and 2 colleagues are not here, Erik Wallgren, Katarina Zaisev. I have the coordinator for the matchmaking in Sweden, Mrs. Katarina Ducka. And for travel manager support for the travel is Birgitta Bowman, who's going to explain this more detailed after the coffee break. Now I would like to invite actually my friend from Volvo, because some more time before the coffee break. And after that, you can ask to us everything you want. And we will answer as well we can. Maybe not always, but as well we can. Please. Har du mikrofonen? Working.
Okay.
Please.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
Okay, a little earlier than planned, but this is, I'm coming from the Volvo group. That's the heavy Volvo. work closely together, of course, with our colleagues and friends at Volvo Cars. But we personally have been located actually in Shanghai for 2.5 years, working in beginning of this 2011 to 13, kind of worked with the kind of establishing some kind of innovation and research base. So during this time, we had an opportunity. There was an MOU signed, and we tried then together, okay, let's do something with this. So we tried to start something really tangible. So we established a CTS, kind of this a Center for Traffic Safety. Traffic safety is a core value for Volvo Cars and Volvo Groups, and I would say a core value for Sweden as well. And this is of high interest also when we discussed it with our Chinese partners. So we started this center in December 2012 with a strong support from, and also you see Li Shifu from Geely, he's in the back really also. So we have a very strong support from the beginning. And so we spent kind of a couple of years in order to understand how to collaborate. To do it for Sweden, we do triple helix collaboration. We have a kind of mature way of doing this, but we need to understand how to do a similar triple helix setup and done bilateral in 2 countries, triple helix. It's what we understood this was quite complicated. But we agreed, and we continue to have yet another 5 years. We are in the 5-year plan now until 2020. So what we have today is we have slightly, we don't want to grow this too fast. We would like to have real projects and real results. So we have run a couple of pilot projects to understand how to do this. But we've added a few important partners actually during the last 5-year period. So as you see now, we have the kind of, from a Chinese side, the Research Institute of Highway, that's a part of the Ministry of Transport. Very important, we are good friends there. Tongji University in Shanghai, and both the School of Transportation Engineering and Automotive Engineering. Very good school when it comes to in these domains. Tsinghua in Beijing, very important, also have a lot of strong expertise in this field. From the Swedish side, we added this SAFER, that's the kind of this traffic safety center for Sweden. It's part of Chalmers actually, but it's kind of branded. So that is established. It has been around for 10 years. So this center is growing and very established also internationally. There is SAFER is also working with like how to handle field operational tests, how to work with really systematic traffic safety topics. We also now, VTI, the Swedish Transport Research Institute, they joined last year, maybe a year before that. Very important addition that we actually have an authority in the center from the Swedish side. Then from the industry side, we have also Autoliv, who has joined the last 5-year period, who has a very strong presence in China. A lot of activities and research activities, factories, and is a very strong player. Developing also not only passive safety and airbags, but also active safety systems. A new partner also from last year is Geely. So I have now Geely Auto, and their research center is now also joining. Now we have actually also an industrial Chinese partner into the center. So now we actually can say we have a kind of bilateral triple helix research center established. And of course we have the Volvo Cars and Volvo Group then as 2 of the founding members. As you see here, we have kind of 3 type of legs that we are growing. Of course, we would like to do research projects, and with the ambition to increase traffic safety, primarily in China, and to build on the expertise, how to do research in this field, and how to do that in China. Then there is a need for knowledge, actually. There is a lack of knowledge I would say, in Sweden about what's happening in China. So we need to kind of extend and build some kind of network. So I think it's very important to move people. We need to have we need to have student exchange, researcher exchange, and this kind of mobility that's kind of needed in order to strengthen the networks. And the last bullet here, actually building some kind of legacy for Vision Zero. Vision Zero in Sweden is kind of well established since many years. In the beginning it was kind of questioned, but this is impossible. Of course people will die on roads, but it's a vision really. And of course my vision is to come home alive, and I think your vision is also to come home alive. And which means that, and then it makes sense if you turn it that way. And in the beginning I was discussing this in China, kind of impossible in China. This will never happen. But today it's actually getting a greater understanding. This is a very good vision, actually. So we have run a couple of seminars. Every year we do a seminar at the SAE conference in Shanghai. And this has been ranked the best seminar at the conference, which we're really happy at. So there are a couple of focus areas, human factors, kind of road traffic. So a lot of things. When doing traffic research, the basic is to understand the reasoning behind. We need to understand what is data, what's really happening. And here we have seen that kind of how many, it's not only how many accidents, but what type of accidents, in which kind of events, and how really to mitigate the cause of the accidents. Which means, and here we have been struggling actually to really get, how can we get access to real traffic accident data? Because Ministry of the Research Institute of Highway, Ministry of Transport, they have road traffic safety. But then the Ministry of Public Security, the traffic police, they have traffic safety data. And then the Ministry of Information and the MIT, they have the car safety or vehicle safety. So they're kind of three different perspectives. And we need to find a way to cross these borders and really to strengthen this. And of course, there is a lot of push for new technology. We know that in China there's a huge push for intelligent and connected vehicles, and all this automation. This topic is very strong. So there's a good cause for this, but at the same time, the base for the center is to how to introduce this new technology in a safe way that it actually will reduce, we improve traffic safety. So we link this to the different research strategies, kind of identified with the help of our now Chinese colleagues, how is the national strategy for road transportation, what is happening, and then apply the Swedish the CTS strategy according to this, and then try to break this down and what type of project. This slide is a couple of years old, but still there were a couple of things we then worked on in different topics like technology, but also the FOT here actually stands for field operational tests. It's a methodology how to do really research on traffic incidents and to really bring that out. And that's something we in Sweden has been working with for a long time actually. So, and then this kind of technology push from a kind of a where the driver has control to the full automated vehicle, and there is so much ongoing in this domain globally. So there's a lot of things to consider when taking this journey. How far can we go? And we know there's a lot of Chinese companies on the right side here, like TU Simple. There are a number of companies who really introduce new technology, and we can only access this. So with the support from Vinnova, we have a kind of a strategic roadmap project going, and this is a way to kind of plan for the future, where we have looked in where do we want to be 2025 in the center, and then we do some kind of backcasting and see how can we get there. So it's important to have some kind of a strategic and then in a Chinese way a 5-year plan, which makes it easier. It's also good to have this kind of long perspective. Coming from the industry, it's very much a very short. The mentality very much short term, but it's important then to have a long term perspective. So we have this, and we have run a couple of workshops. We did this when we decided to move from 2015 to the first plan, and now this fall we will have more workshops in China, and to really set the plan for 2025. So, and then for the calls, really, we submitted a number of calls, so it's very good that we have this opportunity with joint calls. Last year we had it's an interesting exercise also, because it's we try to work in 2 systems at the same time, with Swedish application, then Chinese applications and joint applications, and we try to understand, and with different deadlines and different timings. And then you're working with universities and institutes, and so it gets very flexible. So you need to be very agile in this process to make it work. But we actually, last year we submitted, I think, at least 5 proposals, of which 2 has been approved. And so we're starting them up now. So these are actually the first, I would say, real projects that we start. And we have a number of partners, also partners not really CTS members. As you see, there are a couple of other companies. And so there are 2. So now we are kind of focusing on how we need to support these projects. We need to get them going. We need to get result from the projects and really understand how to build on this and to learn. But there are a call today that closes on Friday. So I know there is a lot of activities in my inbox in order to support, and we have a list. I think it could be up to 7 projects actually. So not all will be approved, I'm sure, but I think they are quite good, or very good projects. Also with some important partners. So I think we will have will be an interesting time really. So we look forward to get new projects starting up next year. Okay. Any questions for?
Thank you so much for the news. You are working hard with applications.
Yes.
7 applications. Wow. We need to read all of them. It's very difficult to not support economically some of them, but I'm afraid we have limited money. So some of them won't get support, but hopefully a few of them. Now actually you have the opportunity, all of you, to take questions, the people who make presentations now. Now and during the coffee break. We will have a coffee break of 20 minutes, but you have been so quiet that I suppose you really want to talk. Is anybody that would like to ask something to the people who are here? Because after the coffee break, maybe some of them have to leave for other appointments. Anybody want to ask anything? Everything is 100% clear. Maybe the microphone. It's working.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And I have a question is like, as I can see from the PowerPoint, the approved project, especially for the Swedish partners, they are mainly the major players. I mean, the companies are really like big. Like, how about the status of the project submission for the SMEs in Sweden?
Well, that's a good question, yeah, but maybe you can answer that question.
Yeah, we have some. We try to be careful not to open up, but there is an interest. There are some smaller. I don't know if it's an SME, yeah, and an M, I would say. So we have that kind of partners as well. So of course we would welcome that.
So they have already approved, but they are not like the project scale is not big enough, or
it's more to, I mean, when you create a proposal, of course we do this. Now we're working in the CTS under the CTS umbrella. So we try to take responsibility of the quality of the proposal, and that the research focus is then relevant for what the industry also believe is relevant, and we have the academic relevance. And then we see that there is a need, for example, there is one proposal regarding emergency response centers, and then there are companies working with this kind of emergency response systems, and you have technology for that type of systems, and then I think then we will approach that kind of SME or invite for SMEs. But I think this is something we need to develop also, how to open up for new companies. As you see also from the Chinese side, we actually have some SMEs or starting. I think this high-rent technology is a quite high-rent. So it's kind of that's also an SME, as kind of a startup, even if I guess they grow quick in China. So go from SME to larger. Yeah. So I think this is something we need to learn, but we're taking a step by step. We don't want to grow too quick. Still it's a quite small and lean center. I do this on a part-time basis as a director for the center. We also, with the support from many others who do this also part-time. But the focus should be the projects, really. So we need to have a foundation of projects, and then we can take next step.
Thank you. I would like only to add that from Vinnova's point of view, we would like very much the SMEs to join the projects, but not need to be done through they are really needed, not because they are SMEs, but because their participation is required to get a good project in place. Thank you so much. Any other question? Please, there.
So my name is Hans Ebert from KTH, and I have a question regarding the call. So for this year, you have 3 main topics, and then you have subheadings. And when you presented the preliminary information about next year's call, will it be a similar model with subheadings, focus points, which?
Good question. Yes, it will be. But I cannot mention today this because it's still under discussion with most.
It's partly one of the issues that will be discussed at the joint committee meeting in September in Beijing. So there is an ongoing dialogue with the Chinese counterparts about this, and also with the Swedish Energy Agency, as might be coming in here. So.
Any other question, or you are thirsty? What blame you are. Well, if you don't have any more questions, you can ask them during the coffee break that we're going to have today. Now, so you have 20 minutes to take your coffee and ask some questions to anybody or us. Please, make a pause. Thank you so much. much for coming back. So you took not only the coffee and left, but you're coming back. And that's a good sign that you're hearing something of interest for you. And I had the pleasure to invite also a friend, Anna Rivi, from Sweet Care Foundation. So we'll make a presentation for you. Enjoy. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, hello. My name is Anna Ribi. I work at Sweet Care Foundation. And we are supporting global partnerships in health. We're a semi-governmental foundation working to increase internationalization and collaboration and exports from the Swedish healthcare and life science sector. And we were founded 40 years ago to promote Swedish exports. And after that, that should lead to more employment opportunities in Sweden. And we have a mandate from the Ministry of Health and Social Affairs. They fund us to a large extent, but we also have member companies and we have partners within the life science sector in Sweden. So we're a not-for-profit organization. We don't work as consultants. We don't charge for our time, but if we organize delegation trips, then we need to cover the costs for that. But apart from that, we don't invoice anything. And we also work triple helix. We try to combine the private sector, the public sector, and academia. And it's a good idea, but it's not really that easy. But we have an example that was started in February this year, actually, with a delegation trip to India, where we had a lot of government agencies and companies that joined us. And we visited Jodhpur, where they have built up a new high-level specialized university teaching hospital. And actually one of the companies took the initiative to start Vision Zero for infection control. So I think that's an interesting, the Vision Zero can be applied in other areas as well. And they have invited companies and agencies and research as well to participate in that project. It doesn't really have any funding, so we'll see how it's going to happen. But it's a lot of energy in that cooperation. So our role is, well, I usually say that we take the companies by the hand. We take them over the first threshold. We open the door and have them meet potential partners and customers from high level, political level, and down towards companies. So we focused on the first parts of the internationalization process. We don't come close to the business agreement. And as you know, Business Sweden is they are a much larger organization and they have a presence abroad as well. So they have those type of contacts and also the competence in legal aspects and so on. But of course, it's always the companies that have the main responsibility in their own export business. And well, this is what we do. We organize business delegations. We went to China, to Shanghai and Nanjing in April 2018, for example, and we receive a lot of incoming delegations, most of them from China. And they are usually interested generally in hospital care, in elderly care, and for the last year or so, a lot of innovation and understanding our ecosystem. So if any one of you wants to have Chinese visitors, let me know, because sometimes it's, I think I've used a lot of my contacts already in making these programs, so I could need some new ones. And then we have a lot of seminars and knowledge sharing and so on. So yesterday, for example, we had a networking lunch for SME companies, and we had the CEO of the French company that has bought Capio, the healthcare provider. He was here, and we understand that he's a really influential person in France, and it was quite interesting, but I missed that, unfortunately. Yeah. So, of course, we want to contribute to, well, not only exports, but also to spreading the good solutions and innovations from Sweden, so that Sweden can contribute to improving health and healthcare in other countries. This is just some examples of what we have done last year, where we've, so Latin America is sort of blank at the moment, but otherwise we're 5 people, but we try to cover the world. And I'm the one responsible for China. So these are some of the markets that we're focusing on, and China is always a priority, of course. Here are some of the themes that we also are looking into. Elderly care is very interesting in China, and sustainable healthcare is also something that we want to promote. How Sweden, we have a sustainable healthcare, environmentally sustainable healthcare, and that's something that we could also help spreading to, so that we can support the SDGs. We're mostly middle-sized companies, small sized companies, but have a lot of startups and small companies as well. And these are, I don't know if we're about 105 companies and organizations at the moment, so I don't know if these are all, but So, because I heard that we have someone who couldn't come, so I can also talk a little bit about this project, which is about training Chinese nurse students in Swedish. And they have studied since September last year, and the first 4 of them are arriving in Sweden next week. They're going to work in Sandviken municipality as nursing assistants, because they're not nurses yet, for the summer. And then they will go back and continue their studies in China, and hopefully they will come back next year to the same elderly care home where they will work this summer, and then we will see how we can develop a possibility for them to continue in Sweden working as nursing assistants while also studying to get the Swedish nurse exam, and then they can work here for some years and then go back to China and contribute to developing the nurse profession in China. So, yep, I guess that's it. These are my contact details. And if you have any questions, let me know. Okay.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
Oh, that's not the right one.
Well, please. Let me just send this one. Wait a second. Technology is with me, and this sound. Okay. Great. My name is Johan Rukfeldt. I come from a company called Bactiguard. I will give soon a presentation of the company. My role, I have had many different roles in the company. I was CEO at one point in time. I've been the COO for many years, but now I work with business development. And Anna, where is she now? There. She mentioned in the beginning of her presentation, you mentioned a corporation and a company that was launching a project with a zero vision for healthcare infections. And that's actually Bactiguard. So that's your case. So it's a good handover.
Before I talk about what we do in China, I'd like to just give a short presentation of the company because it will help to understand how we've been working in China. As you mentioned, Anna, healthcare infections, we have a zero vision. Actually, we are at war against hospital-acquired infections and antimicrobial resistance. These are very, very big problems, almost as big as the climate change, I would say. And the World Health Organization has also realized that. So this is a global threat to all of us and to our healthcare systems. Today, 700,000 people die every year of infections caused by resistant bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. But if we don't make any change, if we continue like we do today, prescribing antibiotics in the same way we do today, this number will reach 10 million. 10 million people dying every year. Today, 8 million people die from cancer every year. So this will be bigger than cancer. And Africa and Asia, with of course China and India as the two big populous countries, are at a very big risk here. Healthcare associated infections, very closely linked problem. When you get an infection in the hospital, these infections are usually difficult to treat and require both first and second line defense of different antibiotics. Globally, 1 out of 10 patients going into hospital will get an infection basically from the treatment in the hospital. Sweden, it's around 9%. That's general number. Then we have the ICU number, intensive care, where the numbers are much, much higher. So there we have 1/3 of all the patients. And in some low-income countries, it's close to every single patient getting these infections. So what do we do? Well, of course, we need to work on developing new antibiotics, but that takes very long time. So the World Health Organization is saying it's never been more important to prevent infections, because every prevented infection means one patient less needing antibiotics. And that's where we come in. Our vision is, as you understand by now, to prevent hospital-acquired infections. If we can do that, we can save lives, we can reduce costs in the healthcare system, and of course, very importantly, we can stop or reduce the use of antibiotics in the system. How do we do that? The Bactiguard technology, a patented technology, it's a coating that we apply to medical devices. A very big part of these infections are caused by tubes, catheters inserted into the patient. These different devices are needed, but they also cause a lot of problems. They are a passage from the outside to the inside, and after a while, bacteria start to stick to the surface and you get an infection. With our technology, we can stop that. We can prevent the bacteria from sticking to the surface of the device. So normally, after a few hours and a few days, bacteria stick to a catheter that's in the urinary tract or in the respiratory tract, and biofilm starts building. And you have an infection. Here, antibiotics don't work anymore. On a Bactiguard coated device, the bacteria don't stick, so you don't get this colonization of the Earth's surface, and we can reduce infections by approximately 50% in clinical studies. We are focusing currently on these 3 main products. Urinary catheters, it's called the Foley, central venous catheters, and respiratory catheters or endotracheal tubes, because they account for a very large share of this area of problems. So if you need these kind of devices in the hospital, after approximately having them in the body for 2 days, that's when the problem starts and the risk of infection becomes very, very high. So how do we work? We have 2 models. This technology We can license out the technology to other companies. Our main partner is a US company called Bard, acquired by BD, so now it's actually BD. They have been using this technology for over 20 years. They're extremely successful in Japan and in the US. In the rest of the world, we sell under our own brand name, and we sell these different products with our coating. And China is one of those countries where we sell our own products. And we are present in around 40 countries. BD having sort of a license for the US and Japan, but in the rest of these markets, we sell our own products. And in China, it says here that we entered in 2016. But let me give you some more details on our journey and what we have learned. It actually started in 2010, and I was then I moved to China to sort of start things. And one of the first things we did was to go to the Chinese FDA and file for product approval. This was end of this year, and then half a year later we had found our first distributor, a company called Jianan Pharmaceuticals based in the south of China. They have around 2,000 salespeople. They are basically a distributor of pharmaceuticals in all of China. They had also worked a little bit with medical devices. But they had a very impressive sort of coverage, and they were very used to selling pharmaceuticals with clinical evidence, because we also sell our products with clinical evidence. So they looked like a very good partner for us. And they actually paid us 2 million euros for the exclusive right to sell our products. So we thought, if somebody's prepared to pay that much, they must be pretty sure that they're going to be successful. We hired our local Chinese manager in 2012, and I moved back to Sweden. Luni Chen, I think many of you know who that person is. She had a very successful history of launching QMed in China prior to joining Bactiguard. And she had also worked very closely with the Chinese FDA to get QMed's products approved, because that was her first task. And believe it or not, it took 4 years, even with such a good person. We were a bit unlucky because the regulations changed during the time that we were filing this product, and it's a relatively complex product with this coating. So it was new for the Chinese authorities, and we had a lot of expert panels. I think in the last meeting there was 13 professors sitting there and sort of asking questions about our technology. But finally, in 2016, or actually at the end of 2015, we got the approval. And just a year ago, in the summer of 2018, we terminated with this distributor, and we found a new partner in China, Welllead, a different kind of company. Before I talk about that, why did we move away from Jianan? Well, quite a lot of years passed from here to here, and a lot of things happened in the Chinese pharmaceutical sales market. This company had a very profitable business over here selling pharmaceuticals, imported pharmaceuticals, but a lot of price pressure happened in the market, and when it was time to start working with Bactiguard, the company had actually shrunk. And their profits had also shrunk, and they were struggling a bit, and they did not have the resources anymore to really sort of do what they were supposed to do with our product. They were not unsuccessful, but they were not successful enough with our product. And also the fact that they were very focused on pharmaceuticals made it a bit more difficult than we thought, and actually they thought, to introduce medical devices. So to accelerate the growth, we decided to terminate with them already after 2 years, and we now have started working with Welllead, which is a company that manufactures these kind of products. So they are actually the world's #1 manufacturer of urinary catheters, selling to a lot of big international companies, and they then sell around the world. But they've also started to launch their own brands in China and are very strong in China as well. So they are now the #1 player in China for urinary catheters and endotracheal tubes. 2 of our 3 products, they are the #1 player today in China on the standard products. But to complement their portfolio, to add our product makes a lot of sense. But more importantly, we're changing our way of working in China. Remember I said we had 2 models. We can sell our own product portfolio through distributors, or we can license out our technology. Well, it will actually be a license holder. So they will produce their own products with our technology in China. So it will be local Chinese products. So it will be well-led, infection control, coated by Bactiguard. This will take some time for them to get the products approved, and in the meantime they will be our distributor of the imported products. So we've basically decided to make a pretty big shift in China and become more local. Because we think in order to really accelerate the growth, we're a very small company. We're 70 employees. Our sales are 150 to 200 million Swedish about. So for us to really sort of be able to succeed in China, we need a big, strong local player. And as you saw, we worked 4 or 5 years to get the product approved, and we have more products. Are we going to go through that again? No. Let's do it together with a local player. And we see that both the local demand is changing a bit. Local good products are, if there are good local products, I think the Chinese hospitals more now than previously would like to use local products. So we see a sort of a shift in the demand there. And there are also some regulatory developments that you can get a fast track if you have a local, in some areas, a local product. And then we have now found a player that really knows our product. So what have we learned in our little journey that could be of value to anybody sort of going into China? Well, #1, to really spend a lot of time to focus on finding your partner, the right partner for you. And be prepared to change. And also, in addition to having a partner, having maybe independent local advisors as well. So we worked a lot with regulatory consultants and also with legal expertise together sort of with our partner. And extremely important, pretty obvious, but you know, it takes a while to go to China. You have to take a trip, but if you don't go there very, very often, it's going to be much, much more difficult. So traveling to China, I go to China. I did before we hired Luni. I had to live there, and then after we hired Luni, I still travel to China every month. And our CEO travels to China every 2nd month. And we have some development people that travel to China every month. So we're there all the time. At any point in time, we have at least 1 or 2 people in China working with our partner. And then, so that you don't have to fly all the time, you also have to have, of course, local employees. Even a small company like Bactiguard with 70 employees, we have 1 person now, and we're going to have soon 2 more, so 3 people that we employ and we pay the salary for. Because China is such a big market, you just can't do it sort of with one hand and just let the partner do it. But it also requires a lot of investment, much more than we thought initially. But I think it's paying off now. But the last point, obviously, you have to be patient. We almost gave up after 5 years of waiting for the product approval. But now China is, we have 2 business lines on our own products, it's half of our sales. So that's pretty good. 50%. Any questions? Yes? Maybe everybody can't hear the back.
Okay. Jenny Burton from Investor Stockholm. So my question would be naturally, has Well Lead Medical invested into you in the company?
Not invested into Bactiguard, but invested into the launch of our products in China, of course.
So they don't have a stake in the company?
No, they don't. We have actually had a discussion regarding that, but we're a listed company, so yeah, then they would have to sort of go more or less do it over the stock market.
Okay, I'm Staffan Philipsson from IVL Swedish Environmental Institute.
Yeah.
We are not selling products, but we're selling projects, so it's similar in a way. And I totally agree on all those 5-6 points. What we did after being working since 1986 in China was to establish an office. Because we have to be there very often, we have to establish those relations. And my question is, as I understand from you, you have not your own, you work only through the partners, because we are working through the partners as well. But we decided to anyway have an own office to work very efficient with the
no, but that's a good question. We have, since we have had only one of our people in China, Luni has been employed through Business Sweden. They have this whatever it's called, business support office. So she had her desk and sitting there and sort of being employed and paid local salary in China through. But now we will have 2 or 3 more people. So we will probably set up our own legal entity in Beijing and then have actually more control in that way. But we'll be doing the same things. So all products will be imported through our partner and sort of sold through our partner, but we're there to support them. And I think what we try to do is we try to work as much as possible with the end customers, and that means the hospitals and the key opinion leaders. Because God forbid, if we have to change partner again in the future, if we have a direct link with the customers, then it's easier. So that's important also, that you need to have a good dialogue with your end customers, even if you have a partner in between.
I have a question to add to that. I mean, a key issue is finding the right partner, but also finding the right Chinese staff.
Yeah.
Could you say something about how did you go about doing kind of the due diligence about which is the right partner and which is the right person to hire as a local staff?
Yeah. We should probably have done it the other way. So we first found Janan and then we hired Luni, and she was like, why did you sign up Janan? So starting to try to find your Chinese employee might be a good starting point, and then together with that person sign up the distributor. But I think I lived in China for 1 year, and I basically did 2 things. I filed the FDA regulatory filing, and I found this partner, and I met 50 companies during that year. And one way that we did was we put a pretty high price tag on sort of the opportunity. We said, if you want to partner with us, we want to see quite a lot of upfront commitment financially. So a lot of companies then just backed off. So then we had 2, 3 at the end who really, and then we could sort of almost compare them and auction out this opportunity. But even with all of that homework, it still wasn't ideal. But there were many reasons for that. And I think the time, as you saw there, from 2011 to 2016, a lot of things happened. If we had launched immediately with Janan, it might have been okay. But you know, my best advice is also to use references, of course. We always talk to Getinge, Elekta, Essity, all the big Swedish companies in our field who are they working with, what are they doing, you know, can they recommend somebody, and also finding the local Chinese people in that way. I mean, we found Looney through QMed, so I mean, that somebody else can say, yes, this is a good partner, yes, this is, we've worked with them for 10 years, we know what they do, sort of. That gives you some security. And same when you hire somebody, that person comes from somewhere else and you can talk to those people. So references and it's absolutely critical.
Any other questions?
If not, we want to thank you.
Oh, and one more question.
One more? Yeah?
I know that you work a lot with training and education of your distributors and also of the staff that are going to use them. How can you do that in China? Because it's a little bit more complicated. It's far away and different languages.
No, we have invested quite a lot in a sort of electronic training, kind of online training platform. And it's in English, but there's a script. So when we go into a new country like China, we can send the script to our partner, and then they can hire some professional speaker and then just basically translate it. So they now have this training platform in Chinese. So the distributor and all the staff now, there's hundreds of people working in the sales, they can do that. But we work with train the trainers. So I mean, we train a few of the key people at the distributor, and then they train others together with this platform.
Okay, Jen Jepson from Nordic. I have one question because I see the maps you have made. Of course, you talked mainly about China, but of course you are also selling your products in the other countries. Yeah. But when you compare with the developing new market, China or Europe or USA, what is the big difference when you start a new market?
Well, one is the regulatory environment. We're in a business where the regulatory environment is very important. So you can't just start selling a product. You have to get it approved. And countries like China, Japan, US, Brazil, India, they have their own regulatory authorities. So you have to kind of start from scratch. So that's one aspect. If you sell to a country that accepts the CE mark, you can start the next day usually. So that's one part. And the second part is, how does the sales process work? What kind of, you know, in some parts of the world, each individual hospital makes their own decisions. In Sweden, it's the landsting makes a decision, and they make the decision once every 4 years. So if they just made the decision, you have to wait for 4 years until it's time to talk to them again. China has a slightly different system, but every country has their system. So you need, of course, to work. Therefore, it's extremely important to have a local partner who knows how to sell these kind of equipment or devices in that market. What does the sales process look like? Is it tenders? How often are those tenders? How does it work? So we rely heavily on local expertise, and we provide them with the expertise about the product and they about how to sell in that market, I think.
Great, thank you.
If no more questions, we want to thank you for excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think what you said is actually in every country. It's not easy to going abroad. Every place you need a good partner, good advisor, to find the right people to working for you. Yes, it's not easy, and you need own resources, money, people working for you, a local presence, of course, passions. So it works, applies everywhere. Small difference here and there, but that's the key. Thank you so much. Now I would like to welcome my colleague, Brigitte Bowman. Okay. Now I need to connect it that way. Maybe you can use it. Yeah, okay. Do you need a presentation when you can talk it? Ja, men jag kan inte koppla det här.
but no worries. My name is Birgitta Boman, and I work together with Ciro and Lars at our international department. And I will talk a little bit about our travel grants. You can apply for travel grants, of course, to strengthen the international collaboration. And it is only available for Swedish SMEs and research institutes. And it's not an open call available for everybody to apply for. It's only for selected meetings and matchmaking events, which Vinnova have prioritized. You can apply for 50,000 crowns inside Europe and 25,000 outside Europe. And it covers airplane tickets, hotel nights, and local transports. I don't know if there are any special conditions for this.
Actually, the criteria for selection. The first priority are those that have already a project idea and they have an established partner in China. Priority number 2 is those that have an idea of what they want to do and they have some candidates to become the partners for this project. Or the third is that they have an idea what they want to do, but they don't know with who. So this is the priority, first, second, and third. Yes, it's very important to show that you have experience of doing R&D internationally, first of all in China. Yes, and it's a cost. Of course, we are supporting you with money for the travel to China and back, up to 5 days. One person is to China, it's up to 25,000 Swedish crowns. At the end, you need to show your invoices, and so you can get all the money back to you up to 25,000. We are going to put this information available on our website, hopefully already on Monday next week. So you will see the information with the common call for next year at our website, Vinnova Most 2020. You will see in this page the information about what are the requirements, the selection criteria, when it opens, and it will be closed at the end of August. So between the Monday next week and the end of August, you can apply for getting travel grants from Vinnova. We're going to do the selection, and at the end of the first week of September, we hope you can get the decision from Vinnova who is going to get these travel grants. And we're going to send the information to Most in China because it's a cooperation with Most in China. They need to send invitation letters to us so we can apply for visa to China. It takes some time, as you know. And you're more than welcome to apply. Any other question you have, please. You have still maybe 5 minutes if you want. Well, we are so good presentators, all of us. You understood everything we said today. So in that case, Vinnova, my colleagues, Joanna, Lars, and Birgitta want to thank you for coming today, being with us, and looking forward to your applications to come to China, or applications for the coming call next year with MOST. Thank you so much.